I don't think I'd originally thought of retainer as a possibility for my business, but now I'm starting to shift clients from the project based to the retainer model. And so that's also like, that's been a learning curve of like, how do I make this work?
Hello, hello, hello. It's Holly Rustick here with Grant Writing and Funding, and I am super excited to have an amazing guest on the podcast this week. And we are talking to Tiffany Thibodeau, and she is in the Freelance Grant Writer Academy. She's been in it for a few months, and you just are like a rock star in there and bring so much energy to all of the calls and all the things. So I couldn't be happier to have you in there. That's your introduction to creativity. Rockstar. You're welcome. And yeah, I'm really excited because you also came into the program already doing freelance grant writing on the side, right? And you're like, okay, I have a goal to, do some things in my business, to get more systems in place, to get clear on my packaging and my pricing, and to like quit my full-time job by Q1 of 2024. But you were able to do that so much earlier. So I just want to applaud you on that. And, a whole quarter earlier, you're like, actually, I'm ready to quit my job now, and I can do it now because I have the clients in place in just the last few months. So I just that's amazing that you've been taking the work, applying it, getting coaching, and just going. I love it. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. And you also have, so as I was talking about, you have a grant writing business. Now you're full-time in your grant writing consultancy, and it is Tiffany Thibodeau and .com. And we'll definitely have all the show notes and the links and all the things. So, but you also offer grant writing. So can you talk about because you come into this with a background in education. You've done, as an educator, you've done a lot of different types of work in there. You come in with grant writing experience. So can you kind of talk about what got you interested in grant writing from that educator perspective to grants?
Sure. Yeah. So I had been in, I guess I'll start with my degree is in communications, and I started in communications. I did an internship in development at an art museum in my area. And I had been doing some tutoring or something on the side, and then realized that I really love working with kids. So I just pivot from my intentional goal of doing nonprofit communications to working in early ed, and then working in elementary and secondary education. And I did that for about 15 years before I realized that I wanted to just try to figure out what else to do as my next phase in life. I started doing some freelancing while I was still teaching. And so maybe for the first year after I left teaching, I was doing content writing as a business, as my my freelancing work. And it was actually a conversation with my therapist, and he was like, well, you've been talking about this, you're still connected to education. Everything I talk about is related to supporting students, math education, STEM education. And then I was also talking about how I wanted to do this work in a nonprofit sector. So I took a part-time job at a nonprofit organization, and I was also working part-time at my library and just kind of trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. And then he said, well, what about grant writing? You like to write, and you want to continue writing, and you also want to work in a nonprofit space. And it was just suddenly oh yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. And so the more I started to sort of think about that and talk to different people, and basically stalk your website about information, I realized that that is exactly what I wanted to do. So I started with Dr. Beth Browning's course through University of Georgia, which was great, really great foundation for getting me started. And then I reached out to a grant writer who is in my area and asked if she needed a subcontractor. And she said yes. And so I started working with her and really getting some experience in that way. I had written grants for my classroom, but it's like a whole different thing to be writing not about the thing that I'm living every day and be able to write about a different organization and tell their story. So getting that experience was great. And then I got my first client, which was fantastic. But I knew that if I was going to actually make a business out of it, I really needed some support and getting some systems in place to be able to grow from there.
Oh, I love that. And I love Dr. Bev. I don't know if you know that we've done a lot of things together, her and
Oh,
I.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember taking her advanced grant writing course online. I think it was like way back in the early 2000s, like long time ago. And I remember it was so funny when I reached out to her to be on my podcast like 6 years ago. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so like full circle. So she's so awesome. So that's really
Yeah,
cool.
she's fantastic.
Yeah. And then I like what you also talked about as far as like looking at reaching out to somebody, doing a course, getting some experience, writing a few grants, right? Maybe some teacher grants. But then like being bold enough to be like, reach out to someone and say, hey, would you subcontract me? So, or, with me. And were you asking them to pay you right at that point? You felt like, okay, you know what? I have experience and I'm getting some grants. Like, how was that? Because I know a lot of people think, oh, I got to volunteer so long first before I can get paid. So can you talk about
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I reached out by email and I said, I'm looking to just get a little more experience in the grant writing space. And I know that you work with organizations in this field. And here's a sample that I wrote for my grant writing course. Would you take a look at it? And would you do you need any support? And they responded and it was great. We had a really nice conversation and we agreed on a fair price to just get me started as doing some work for them. So yeah, I think one of the things that particularly in the nonprofit space, we tend to think that we need to do everything for free to get
Mhm.
experience. And I had already gone down that route with a lot of other things of unpaid work. It's like just unpacking the teacher personality of always taking on things that are unpaid. And I
Yeah.
was like, no, I need income. So I'm going to ask. And so we were able to work that out and it worked out well.
I love that. I love that so much because yeah, you're right. So many people, and especially in the nonprofit space, education space, all of that is like, oh, I've got to do all of this and then do it for free. So like take this entire course and then I have to write a grant. Then I have to work for intern for a year or whatever before I even get paid. And that's so not it. Like, as you know, there's so many grant writers out there. And even in the academy, people are like, anyone needs some work? Like I got too many clients, right? Like things happen like that. And we know that it's okay if they're not haven't written a million grants as long as they understand the concepts. And sometimes actually people who subcontract or hire grant writers, they prefer them to have just a skill set, a bit that they've understand the framework, or they want to teach them theirs. Like if they're already so set in their ways of how they do grant writing, sometimes they're like, I'd rather have someone more fresh, right? So I can also train them in the way that I do it. So I love that you came in, especially, and we're like, I'm not going to do this for free because I have invested in a course, I have written some grants, and that's enough, right? Like I can start there. So kudos to you for that, to start there. And then you also talked about content writing. And I remember our first conversation together, and you're talking about I do content writing too. Right. So I was like, that's really interesting because a lot of nonprofits also need content writing. They need work on newsletters or on blogs or on all of that. So have you kind of held on to both as you're growing your business, or are you starting to just focus more on grants as well? Or are you kind of building both up together?
Yeah, I would say I'm building both up together, but it's probably at sort of a I don't know, 2/3, 1/3 balance of more leaning more toward the grant writing right now. I offer the content writing as sort of an add-on for nonprofits who are like maybe we were awarded a grant and they want to celebrate with a press release. I can write that
Yeah.
press release. Maybe they're looking to just connect with their supporters beyond grant makers. And so they're looking to put out a newsletter, and I can help with that sort of thing, or doing profiles on board members, or just sort of telling their story. And there are lots of different ways in which nonprofits can connect with people. And they have there's so many nonprofits that are doing so many amazing things. And so like, don't keep it to yourself. Tell people, tell the world all of these awesome things that you're
Mhm.
doing, and all of this growth that you're seeing from the people that you are supporting in your communities.
I love that. I love that so much. And plus, like, then you can also help with like donor engagement and other ways of bringing in funding, right? Or
Mhm.
corporate solicitation letters, or, you know, so you can kind of say, hey, I do grant writing, but let's add on these other components if that's what they need, right? To
Mhm.
really leverage more funding, right?
Yeah.
And awareness. So that's a really cool way to do it. And not a lot of grant writers have that skill. Just because you know how to write doesn't a grant doesn't necessarily mean you know how to write those other things, right? So like even me, I would like my mom, she's an educator. She's been an educator for like 35 years, and she teaches English and all of that. And I'm always like, I know how to write all the technical stuff, but I'm like, review my grammar. You know what I mean? So there's different skills. It doesn't mean you necessarily know all the grammar and all the things just because you're a grant writer. It's very different type of writing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
It's
like have both, you know,
mhm.
do both then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And then connecting with people who have maybe that skill that you don't have, to get a little insight, or learning how to improve that area.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So this is really cool. So as you're like growing your business and you've been in the academy for a few months, and I remember I was so excited that you're like, yeah, I'm quitting my full-time job early and I'm looking, you know, I was able to like grab some things while writing a grant like easily into the academy. So let's kind of get in there. Like, you know, you came in saying, I want to do these things in my business. And within the first few months, and you have a whole 12 months in the program. So super excited about that. And just even in the first part of it, like what are the benefits that you've really seen like in your services, in your pricing, and reaching your goals for the number of clients that you want?
Yeah, it's been amazing being a part of the academy. I think the one the one really awesome thing is my partner is glad that I have Holly to talk to now about business things, and I'm not asking questions that I'm not going to get an answer to at home. So that's been really great. And so just being able to use the Slack channel to ask questions, or put a grant in there for review. I took on my very first federal grant because I had the support from the community to be like, yeah, I can try this out, and I'm not going to fall flat on my face, and this is going to work out. And I don't know that I would have had the courage to do that if I didn't have people saying, yeah, you can definitely do it. And here are some things that you should sort of think about before you agree to the contract. And then on the other end, saying, here's some ways that you can make your grant proposal better and stronger, so that you can submit it to the agency. Um, so that's been really great. And then the other part that has been really helpful for me is having a place to talk about systems. So what works for one client may not work for every client, but having a system that works for me so that I can use it consistently. It's been really awesome being a part of the coaching calls and hearing about the way that different people structure things, and then getting your advice, Holly, about how to structure things so that these things that maybe I haven't encountered yet, but I know that will likely come up, and like being able to plan ahead. So what do I need to put in place? How do I refine this so that it's better from the last time I tried it with a particular client? And then your templates have been sort of a lifesaver in terms of saving me time. I realized in like a very like sort of last minute-ish with a rush grant that I needed an MOU to get prepared, and being able to grab your MOU template and tailor it for the organizations that we're going to be working together, and then just sending it off to them so that they didn't have to do anything else with it, just read it and sign it, was fantastic. And then that was like just that in itself was like so much value to me in
You're
getting
like,
started.
investment back.
Yeah.
Because that was like the 3-week first federal grant
Yeah.
turnaround. You're like, I was like, oh, what? But you got it. And I was like, yeah, you got it because you got the resources, right? And then you can quickly do it. So that would save so
Mhm.
much time. But kudos to you to doing your first federal grant in 3 weeks. Like that's pretty insane. So yeah, that's awesome though that you were able to get it done and feel supported. So yeah, that's amazing. And I love how you're talking about the systems as well, right? Because that was one of the things when you enter the program, you're like, I want to increase my systems and have a more structure set up. So do you feel like you're in a better position now to onboard clients or just to know what your services are and all of that? Have you been able to rehash that pretty well?
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest thing has been knowing how to talk about what I do and who I support. So, you know, clients are now reaching out to me that are, or potential clients, I'll say, are reaching out to me because they know that I am a grant consultant and content writer who works with education nonprofits and youth development nonprofits. And before I was getting, like someone wanting to like start a shoe business and wanting grants or like just other things that were not aligned with what the services that I offered, just because they saw the name grant writer and they wanted a grant writer, but it wasn't necessarily a good fit for what I could do for them. So now I feel like that's a lot clearer in my messaging. And it's also clearer to me what it is that I'm looking for and not looking for, and working with a potential nonprofit partner.
I love that. And it's just like coming in. And I know we really talk about like, you got to identify who you want to work with because there's so many nonprofits out there, right? So a lot of people get into it. They're like, oh, I'll take on anything that comes to me. But like you said, like that might not be a good fit. And it's actually harder to market to anyone versus, oh, I know my skill sets in education. I know that's where I'm passionate, so I want to focus there, right? And that's how now I know who I can market to. I can look at schools and education sector and all of that, and I can be very proficient in writing those types of grants, right? So you're going to build up your portfolio quicker too. So is that how you, like, as you entered, you're like, oh, this is actually how this system can start, is me just being more clear on what I want. Is that
Yeah,
kind of how you
yeah,
felt going through
yeah.
the
It was
process?
definitely
Yeah.
that. It was
I
like
and
totally clear.
I love it. And that's, I always like the clarity right away. It's always like, okay, I know you're doing all these things and you got all these skills and you're doing all the things, but let's pull it back. And even if, I remember we were talking and you're like, and it was like, that can sound like a lot of services, but because who you're serving, education and youth nonprofits, that's very niche. So now you can have a little bit more broad services with a very niche kind of focus. So I love that. And then through that too, you said now you were able to quit your job early because you were able to get clients. So from there, where have you been able to secure clients? Then it sounds like pretty quickly in the academy. How since you've been
Yeah,
in there?
it was sort of it feels like a long time coming, but just
Yeah.
I don't know, September hit and then suddenly it was like, wow, okay. And trying to keep up with it. And at a point in October, I realized that I had so much grant and content work with nonprofits that I couldn't sustain that and also working where I was. So I am still working with the organization, trying to offboard myself as they bring on someone else. But it's really just more like 5 hours a week. It's an organization that's like really close to my heart. So I'm still volunteering there. But I'm glad because like now being able to work as a freelance consultant and work as a content writer, I'm able to actually like bring in the money that I need, that I wasn't necessarily able to have before. So that now I'm like, yeah, sure, I can volunteer a couple of hours because I'm not going, oh my goodness, I need to make money some other way. So I have a little more breathing room now, which has been really great. And I think the really great part about it is I get to work with all of these different nonprofits. I'm reaching out to them and they're reaching out to me, and I'm able to support them in some way and making connections with the nonprofits, resource centers that are in different areas, and learning from them, but also being a resource for them as well.
Mhm.
And that's been really helpful, and like a really great experience, and sort of, I guess, hoping to building these long-term relationships and connecting with different organizations, particularly in the education and youth space.
I love that so much. And I love what you said too, is like before you kind of were there, but you weren't really making enough money. But now you feel actually more empowered to help and serve. And I think that's what a lot of people, they think, oh, I have to stay in this nonprofit or this situation that is paying me pennies because I believe in the cause. And I'm always like, oh, no, 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 that's a toxic situation. Even though it might be a beautiful, great nonprofit, it's not healthy for you, right? And you can't really give 100% because you have all this stress on your mind. So it's so great then that you've put yourself in a position where you're like, I can get paid more and I can feel really good about having the space to show up 100% and volunteer, right? And I'm serving all of these great causes that I'm passionate about in this sector that I believe in. So it really is like a mindset change, right? Did you really find that that was kind of more where it was, and then like, okay, I can actually make this work, and then just making the plan work? Is that kind of how
Yeah,
you
I
felt?
think a lot of it was mindset, and it was, how do I do this? And if I do this, what happens if I fail? Like, so that's always like a fear part that I think comes up. And then it was also just, like, when you like the work that you're doing, then like, you know, could you just continue it? Could I do like balancing both of those things for a longer period of time? And then I realized that like I was stretching myself too thin and not able to give what I needed to give to each organization. It just wouldn't have been presenting my best if I had continued in that way. So I realized that it was like I was at a good place where um, we were already, recognizing that at some point I was going to be exiting,
Mhm.
and I was going to be working with all of these other organizations who I also believed in, and I had a way of doing it in sort of a capacity that I was really excited about. And it was also just really helpful for my lifestyle. So being able to like be home with my dogs because I'm a huge
Yeah.
dog mom, and just be able to sort of take care of myself on a personal level. And that was really helpful to just sort of make that switch. And it felt like a win-win because now I'm like, I don't have to choose which nonprofit I work with. I can work with all of these nonprofits, and I can give my best to all of these nonprofits because I'm working on better on my terms.
I love that so much. Oh, I love it. I'm so proud of you for getting in that space, because you enabled yourself and empowered yourself to be able to be in that space, right? So talking about like that mindset, what if I fail, right? So how did you get through that then? Because there's that, like you said, as soon as you kind of overcome, well, what if I fail? Then when you come out the other side, you're like, well, I'm going to try to do this anyway. So what was that kind of like bridge? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think part of that was so you had mentioned something, and you mentioned it again. I think you say this probably a lot. I think it finally resonated with me on one of our coaching calls about just like that idea of what you think is productive work, and so you're just kind of spinning your wheels, like redesigning your website multiple times, which I've been there, and like just doing other things that you're saying, oh yeah, these things will help me be in a position to do it, and then at some point you just have to leap. And I think that was one of the conversations that we had. It was just like at some point, you're going to ask yourself, what do you need financially to make the move, and what do you need sort of like, I guess, business wise to make the move. But at some point you just have to do it. And so I was like channeling that and going, all right, I just have to make the leap. It may work. I may fail, but like I have like, I was, in the grant Writers Academy, and I had all of the support around me, and so it's just like, okay, if things don't go well, I can course correct
Mhm.
before hopefully before I completely fall on my face.
Yeah, and you have it, and I love it. And the thing is, it's in business, like, yeah, you might have times where you don't have as many clients, but then you can pull things out like, okay, I can find more clients. Like, I know how to do that. Like, once you have the skills, right? And we really teach that nonprofit sales strategy that we have, because selling to nonprofits is different than selling to like for
Mhm.
profits, right? Especially as a grant writer, they're going to ask you specific questions. And as soon as you become confident in that, and you know your niche, you know who you want to reach out to, you know the causes you want, and you've just been building your portfolio, it's really not difficult to get clients, right? Is
Mhm.
that also too kind of like, do you feel more at peace now because you have more financial stability? Are you feeling that more in your business now?
Yeah, I'm feeling more at peace, and I'm feeling more confident, I think, and I think that's one of the things, like, I don't know that the Tiffany a year or 2 ago would have sent, like, emails to, just nonprofits that I'm interested in working with and say, "Hey, I'm a grant consultant. I work in this particular field or this area, and, if you're in need of someone, I'm here to support you." And I don't think that I would have done that without, like, having both the confidence and the language to be able to do that. So yes, that's been really helpful and helping me sort of overcome sort of those hesitations and the fear that might come along with, starting a business.
Yeah, because you have to be vulnerable to put yourself out there, right? And like, but having a script, give a lot of scripts and then say, use your own voice, into this, but here's a structure at least. Do you have something?
Mhm.
And I love that you guys even submit like, hey, what if I write this email? We can look at that and give some feedback or whatever, right? Just to help that confidence too. Because the thing is that it's like we might feel like, oh, they reject me and all that. But a lot of times they're not going to. And if you didn't reach out, they wouldn't have had that support. And they're so busy, they don't have time to even seek the help that they need. So you're actually doing them a favor, right? So have you been able to train like your mindset change just on that too?
Yeah.
Like, hey, cold calls isn't actually that bad. It's actually a helpful thing I'm doing for them.
Yeah, exactly. And even if the like, even if it's like a no now, it might be just like oh, somewhere down the line, I remember your name and I'm going to reach out to you. And that's also great. And I also had that experience recently where I sent a message to another nonprofit resource center, and I got an email back recently, and it was, you work with education organizations, and there's an education organization looking for this right now. And it was great to be able to like to see that, oh yeah, just by reaching out and introducing myself, now like they're also connecting with me, and helping me connect with nonprofits who might need support.
I love that. It's like they're tucking away your name, like, okay, and then
Mhm.
and they, oh yeah, I know somebody that does that, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, and that's why I love how clear you are on what you do and the services that you provide, because that just gets people's attention then too. It's like, oh, okay, and not like an education nonprofit's talking about needing a grant writer, like boom, who are they going to think of? Not of like a grant writer they scrolled on Instagram the other day that just has general services, or remember Tiffany who does education for grant writing. So it's just like really clear, and it really helps your marketing and you're connecting, right? So I love that. So and I know that you love utilizing the coaching calls in the academy. So we do coaching calls twice a month. We also have the Slack channel, and you're in there a lot. Are there other parts of the program that I know you talked about grabbing just curriculum and using things that we have in our curriculum, like templates and all of that. But like, where's your favorite place to hang out in the academy, and where have you been getting the most like support?
How do you pick one? um I spent a lot of time in, I think, sort of the business reviews Slack channel. So that's like probably one of my favorites. And then also, I guess most recently going through your just like trying to make sense of the peer review process. So part of your package is giving people sort of insights into how do you become a peer reviewer and how do you use that as one area to grow your grant writing knowledge and then also help to make an additional stream of income. And so going through that has been great because there's so many federal agencies and just trying to navigate the like how do you find the information to like know when peer reviewing is going to happen. It's been great to have that as a resource. So that's one of the things that I've been thinking about as being really helpful.
You
Yeah.
need to be a federal grant reviewer for DOE for sure, hands down. Like at least, and SAMHSA, because they do a lot, you know, so you can definitely look at administration for children and youth as well would be a great one for you. So yeah, there's several that you could definitely get your foot in the door and that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I love that you're going into the business reviews in Slack. So for those of you listening, one of the things in the academy that we do is you can submit grants and we give reviews and you can submit anything in your business. I'm gonna, you know, writing a proposal for a client coming up, writing your services, your website, whatever, and you want feedback. And then we drop a video feedback, right, in Slack. So are you also looking at other people's? Because we put everybody, because it's a benefit for the community, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's been great learning just about, so when other people in that program have questions and being able to see like what are the questions that they're coming up with and also just like what are some possible strategies. So watching those videos as well has been really helpful. So like the letter of intent reviews from the grant review channel or different pricing plans that people are developing and how does that like compare to what I'm doing and is there something in there that I can take from it? And that's also been really helpful in just going, oh yeah, I should make sure that that's clear when I share my offer, so that, you know, organizations are prepared for like, you know, they can plan for that in terms of pricing and timeline. So getting, you know, because I don't think you're ever going to think of everything, you know, like on your own, but like having a number of people to sort of bounce ideas off of or to see what they're thinking or what they're coming up with and be able to go, oh yeah, that's something that I should definitely plan for. So that's been great.
I love that. I love that. And I love how you guys are all like partnering on different things. Some of you all are going on instrumental together. So, you know, there's different ways to leverage the group for doing things like that. So yeah, that's been really beneficial, I know, for you guys. So I love it though. I love that you're going in and watching the other reviews though. I wish everybody was doing this too. And I know a lot of people in the academy do it because there's just so much you get out of it, right? So even if you might not be like you said, maybe you haven't developed a website yet, but you can watch the reviews that we give on people's websites. So then you can get ahead of it. So instead of like having to correct things, you already know the structure and how to do it, right? Just by watching those reviews or like ideas on how people are setting up their structure for their pricing, right? Is a big one.
Yeah. And how to organize the proposal. So I know a lot of us use your proposal template for presenting to potential clients and being able to see the different ways, like even though like everyone's starting with that same template, like just the different variations of how it makes sense to structure. And then like, you know, I don't think I'd originally thought of retainer as a possibility for my business, but now I'm starting to shift clients from the project based to the retainer model. And so that's also like that's been a learning curve of like, how do I make this work? And counting my hours, which I know, Holly, you're like, keep track of your hours, even if you're not reporting them to clients. You don't need to report them to clients, but it's really helpful in your business to know where things are going. So I'm even tracking my hours right now to make sure I keep track of everything.
Yes, me too. I'm always like, track your hours. I'm so big on that, even though I'm not big on hourly pricing always, but big on knowing for you, like, how long does this actually take me to do, even if it's admin stuff in your business, right? Because then you can figure out how much do I need to hire out when I hire up a VA to come in and help me, right? It's just like knowing, having time tracking gives you data. It gives you data, and data gives you unemotional, neutral decision making, right? So it can be very powerful. So I love that you're utilizing all of that. So kudos to you. That's so great that you're shifting over to retainers too. And I think that's just going to create even a larger sense. I know you already have like a large sense of financial stability now in your business, especially compared to your job before, which is great. So a lot of people, they can't get their minds around that. They're like, isn't a job more financially stable? I'm like, no, just wait. And then when you have the retainers, that'll only increase, right? Because then you're going to see cash flow for longer periods of time with fewer clients. So it can be very, very helpful. So I love that you're moving in that direction, and I can't wait to support you along the way. You're doing that. Yeah. So one more thing I just wanted to talk about before we close out today was something you actually mentioned in the green room, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit here, was you said you had actually been following me for a long time, like a year, and watching things. And I just kind of wanted to mention that because I think that's a really cool thing. Like, and I've done that for like coaching programs. I've gotten like, I'll follow the person and how that was instrumental to your decision making, right? Ability, or even if you like scroll through like Instagram from years ago, just to kind of see like, who is this person? Like, right. So can you kind of talk about that? Just because I do think that's such a great thing to do, is like, yes, check out people you're going to invest in their programs, like really find out who they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are so many programs right now. And I know it's like way more than I think there were a couple of years ago. So just being able to like see the resources that are available, and then between following your LinkedIn and the podcast and the website. So I feel like since probably maybe November of last year, like just like the weekly podcast, and then going back and listening to some of the older episodes, and just thinking about the amount of value that I got just from those and getting started, and sort of helping to build my grant writing knowledge, but then also my business knowledge about like, how do I set up this business so that it can be sustainable and be, something that will be helpful for my family. And then I went to the nonprofit consulting conference, which was fantastic. And so many great resources came out of that from you and other nonprofit consultants who were presenting. So you had offered that coaching call to sort of talk about things, to talk about the end of year and sort of planning your end of year. And I shared with you that my end of year goal, so like by January, I wanted to be full-time consulting. And you had already during that call had given me so many tips, like of how do I structure things. And I don't know if you knew this going into the call, but before we'd even met for that call, I was already like, I have my credit card ready. Holly, sign me up. I'm ready to go. I had been reading your resources and using your resources for a while then. And like, I knew that this was going to be a good program for me. And I like your mentoring style. And so that was really helpful. So that was great. And so I'm so glad that I was able to hop into the Freelance Grant Writers Academy and get going.
Oh, I love that so much. I'm like, oh, I'm blushing. I love that because, a lot of times, like, even for myself, I'm putting out resources. You never really know who's using it or what's happening unless they communicate back to you. You know what I mean? So sometimes it does feel like you're like, oh, I don't know. So I love that you were able to get so many benefits out of it. And then to really think about like, okay, yeah, I'm getting so much out of this already, so why not invest? So that's so good. And that's where a lot of my investment has come through, as well as like, if I just implement one thing I've heard that person say, if it's an Instagram reel, or if it's in a blog, or if it was on a webinar, and I really felt like it resonated with me and it really changed something in me, I'm like, okay, there's something here. I want to investigate more. So I'm really glad that you did your homework and that you came in the program. Like, you've been utilizing the resources, right? So that's fantastic. So yay, I love it. So okay, so Tiffany, so you, like, once again, those people out there listening to the podcast today, especially if you're a nonprofit, you want to find out more, you're in the education sector, you're in the youth development sector, you want grant writing, you want content writing, Tiffany is your queen. She's going to help you do all those things. So you can definitely find her. So where can I find you, Tiffany?
Most people can find me on LinkedIn. I think that's how most people find me now. It's just Tiffany Thibodeau. You can also find me on my website, which is tiffanythibodeau.com. Trying to figure out a better name that's easier to spell.
We'll
um,
have the link as well, and that's her last name is spelled Thibodeau. So just play that back in slow, or just go ahead and go to the show notes today and grab those links so you can grab it. So yeah, and you have a beautiful website. People can go there. They can see all your services. They can see all the great things you're doing on LinkedIn. Is there anything else that you want to say before we close out today, Tiffany?
I so appreciate this time, Holly. This has been great. And yeah, I'm learning so much. And I just encourage, like, if any of your listeners have an opportunity to be a part of the academy, or just are looking for great resources, it's been absolutely worth it, and worth the time and the investment. And yeah, so great.
I love it. I love it. Yes. So we'll be with you and continuing on your journey as well. And yes, please, you guys, come join me and Tiffany. You guys can definitely find her inside the academy. She is very active and I love it, and gives great feedback to all the other community members too. So thank you for being so active and such a gem.
Thank you.